Hello, Mr. Saxena, and welcome to the special interaction as part of ET Campus Stars. I'm Nandini Nandal from ET NRI. So, MD and CEO of Auxilo, Mr. Neeraj Saxena, has joined us in this conversation to help us better understand the concept of studying abroad and various aspects tied to it. Mr. Saxena leads the financial service company Auxilo, which helps students to study abroad by providing them financial aid in the form of loans. The company envisions to bridge the gaps between students' dreams and the Indian education system itself. Mr. Saxena here has over 16 years of experience in the Indian retail and financial services industry. He is an expert when it comes to business operations, strategy and corporate planning, product management, among other things. He's obviously mastered while working with big names like EY, Trent, and DHFL. He will now throw some light on how education abroad has evolved over years. So, Mr. Saxena, my first question to you is, what is the main reason that Indian students are moving abroad to pursue higher education?
So, Nandini, I think it's a mix of reasons. There's no single reason per se. I think first and foremost is that the Indian students are very aspirational. So I think it's a varied reasons actually. One being, I think Indian students per se are very aspirational, and they look forward for a better lifestyle and a better career. Secondly, I think they are focused on good studies, and I think Indian context, if you see education infrastructure in abroad countries and the quality of education and resulting in good research, etc., is much better there. The job potential when they study abroad in those countries is also one of the factors which lures them. And in Indian scenario, if you see, if you need to achieve something, you need to go through a competitive exam, and then you need to do, your IITs or your medical. In abroad context, there is an exam which is a general exam like a GRE or GMAT. But their admission depends a lot on their personality, the way they write their SOP. So the chances of getting a good university, if you are a good guy, even with a decent GRE, maybe not be a very extraordinary GRE, is much better. And one last factor I would say is many Indian students also look for immigrating out to a US or Canada and work there. Maybe that is also one of the factors which plays an important role.
What are the major countries you think Indian students are looking at now for pursuing their higher education?
So see, from long, I think US is the main country where highest number of students go from India, and that too mainly I would say engineering students who want to do their masters. There's a reason for that, because I think US has great job requirement for these technical engineers in various kind of streams. Also, when they do engineering there, they have a 3 years OPT, which means that they can stay there, without without the H1B also, and keep on looking for job and working there. Mm-hmm. So that actually gives them a benefit, and I think a lot of students look for US. But off lately, if you see the last few years, many other countries have come out very dominant in the foreign abroad study abroad sector. Second largest, I would say, would be after US would be Canada. Then Germany, Ireland, all these countries have come up in the last 5 to 7 years. But still, I would say more than 50% contribution comes from US as a destination.
All right. In your opinion, since you have years of experience in this segment, how has studying abroad, the trend of studying abroad, changed in the last decade?
So I think there's a huge change what I have seen, because I started working in the education finance sector 2012 onwards, So one of the major changes that choice of countries is more evolving now. Earlier, it was predominantly US and UK. Then UK died down in between because of immigration norms and visa norms they have. Now it's come back again. But newer countries, more European countries, Germany, Canada, they have come up quite a bit. Earlier, second aspect which I have actually seen is that earlier the demand was more for traditional courses for which the students were going abroad, mainly engineering and management. But last 4 to 5 years, I am seeing very new age courses also coming up the curve, and people going for those courses as well. Whether it be music or animation or robotics, that has changed a lot. Third most important factor is that earlier studying abroad was more from upper middle class to rich segments dream, right? But of lately, I'm seeing that bright students from low income families also are actually going abroad. And I think one of the reasons for that is that access to finance has improved a lot over the last 10 years. That I think these three constitute, I think, on a major evolution of the education abroad sector and finance sector in the last decade, I would say.
Makes sense. Mr. Saxena, has the USA really lost its allure among the new generation to go abroad? And if yes, then why?
I would not say that USA is actually lost the, because still US is the highest segment, highest number of students go to US actually. Mainly because the job potential there is tremendous and the quality of education is very good. But yes, of course, earlier, if there were X number of students going to US, I think last 5 to 7 years, I would say that number has not grown much, and the increase in the overall people going has got shifted to other countries, which I told you, whether it be Canada or whether it be Germany or other countries, Australia, New Zealand, etc. I think mainly US for STEM students again is still a very attractive destination because they get a 3 years OPT and they can keep on trying for the H-1B visa to study there. But for other streams which are non-STEM, they get only 1 year OPT. So if they don't, their H-1B visa doesn't happen, then there's a risk of they need to come back. On the other side, if you see Canada is again very friendly immigration country. So of course the number has not grown so much, and shifted. The newer people who are going have shifted to other countries also because of all these factors. But I would still say that US, and especially for engineering, is still the most preferred destination for Indian students.
Right. How can students fund their education abroad?
So I think though I run a loan company, I would say that loan should be the last of their consideration. I think first priority should be, to look for scholarships. If there are any scholarships being offered by the universities or other scholarship entities, there are a lot of private scholarships also hovering around the market. Once they evaluate that, then they should always try to see how much savings they have. And they have their own savings if they're working right now and they're going for their masters. Many of them have a saving which they have done in 2-3 years of job, or their parents are supporting them. Once you exhaust with these two options, you should look for a loan. And I think because taking a loan is easier because access to finance will improve, but eventually you'll have to pay back, right? So I think loan should be the third component, which should be the last balance component, which you require actually.
Right. Can you share some tips on picking a suitable loan provider?
I think there are a lot of loan providers existing right now in the country. Maybe a lot of banks are there and a lot of NBFCs are there. I think one of the most important things for students is to see whatever amount they require is being taken care of. That if for example, there's a 40 lakh amount required as a tuition fee, and there's a 15 lakh required for a living expense. So if they need the complete amount and that's their need because they don't have much saved money and no scholarship, then if the 55 lakh is the requirement, then they should look for 55 lakh. They should not right now, just for the sake of doing things and moving ahead, get ready on 40 lakhs or 45 lakhs. Because eventually when they will need the money in the last semester, etc., then if they are there, then it becomes difficult for them.
Right.
Secondly, customer service is one of the important factors, I would say. So it's a very cliche word because every business has to have a good customer service. But I think when I say customer service, I mean actually understanding their need, because every student going to every country for different course has a different need. It's not standard. There's no standard offering which can be given to students who are going to US and New Zealand and Australia. Every country requirement, every course requirement is very different. So always go for a lender who understands education landscape across the world. Specialized NBFCs like Auxilo, we do that day in, day out, because we are not a multi-product company, we are a single product company. Or any other specialized lender who understands education landscape very well, and they can structure the loan according to your requirement.
Right.
And thirdly, timing is very important for the students. Many of them have a lot of timing fixed. If they get a admission letter, and then they need to go for visa. So some students require a loan sanction before the admission letter because the university demands that. Show me the proof of funds, then only I'll issue you the admission letter. Some universities may give the admission letter, but then visa will require a sanction letter from a loan institution. And so the timing of the loan, the disbursement timing, the sanction timing is very important. So make sure that you go to a company where turnaround time is faster as per your need. And lastly, but the most important thing, obviously the pricing is very important. So anyway, students are smart enough actually to choose the lender who offers them the best price. So that's a given.
Right. Since now we're talking about lenders and companies, why should students opt for an NBFC like yours over banks for education loans?
So I think as a consumer, we also understand, we have experienced ourselves in other loan segments also. So banks obviously are huge and have a great advantage of pricing, right? But what happens is that in my previous your previous question, I answered that these students are in a hurry and the timing of the loan, etc., is very, very important for them. In a bank, sometimes they may take a lot of time. Sometimes I think average time taken by some of the banks may go up to maybe a month or beyond. That becomes a deterrent for the students, and that becomes actually an issue for the students when they are planning their whole journey, because they have to plan a lot of things. Many of them are going first time. They have to plan their travel. There's a lot of work they need to do before actually departing from here. And if they have to focus so much on finance happening, not happening, and that the stress due to that, I think that's not worthwhile. Secondly, a lot of banks go for margin money. They say that if your cost of education is 100 rupees, you put in 20, I will put in 80. So sometimes that becomes a challenge for these students because they may not be able to put their 20. Right? So NBFCs per se, like Auxilo or any other specialized NBFC, most of them actually give you 100% funding for your tuition fee and your living expenses. So I think the turnaround time is very fast. You don't get sanctioned. If you have all the documents submitted, then the loan gets sanctioned maybe in a day. So your mental stress goes away. You can plan and you can focus on other things for your travel. So I think mostly subs important is the thing that their NBFCs, specialized education lenders, understand the educational landscape. They don't. They will actually structure a loan so that it suits your needs. They will give you 100% funding, and they will give you a timely response, and they will not be taking so much time of yours. So I think NBFCs, especially the specialized NBFCs in education, have an upper edge over banks, I would say, in this sector.
Right. What do you think are common misconceptions that students have about taking loans to fund their studies?
I think one misconception I would say is that because students have an Indian mindset is actually that we prefer banks and we trust banks more. So when they come to know that we are able to fund their 100% of their expenses, including living, so they're surprised by that, because I've seen many students actually thinking that we'll only fund a part of the cost which is required.
Right.
Secondly, I would say that second misconception is when students come for a loan as a repayment option. Obviously, when they're studying, there's a moratorium, or a partial interest payment they do, because post their study, when they get a job, they start paying the EMI. I think one misconception which needs explaining and which we do to our borrowers is that moratorium doesn't mean no interest. Moratorium means that interest is being charged to your account. You're not paying it. So what happens is that if a guy is going for a course for 2 years, and maybe if 2 years moratorium has been given by the bank or NBFC, it doesn't mean that you are taking maybe 30 lakh, 20 lakh, 40 lakh rupees, and you will not pay anything for 2 years and then you'll pay the EMI. It doesn't happen that way. What happens is that these lending institutions will charge interest. Because you're not paying, it will keep on adding back to your principal amount. So if you have taken a 20 lakh loan and in 2 years, suppose the interest charged to you was 3 lakh rupees. So when you are passing out, you are paying an EMI on 23 lakh rupees, not on 20 lakh rupees. So one misconception is that. Second, they feel that these loans with moratorium, because they have a misconception that they don't have to pay, will be cheaper. but actually a family who's taking a loan for a child, where the parents are saying that we will pay the interest portion at least in the moratorium period, and the student once passes out can pay the EMIs. In that, the load, the burden of interest is lesser because there is no non-payment in the 2 years you are studying, right?
Okay.
So mainly, I think that 2-3 misconceptions hover around these areas, where they don't understand finance so much. They think that banks are better, because of which they struggle. Maybe they struggle for a month or so to get the loan, and then it doesn't happen. Then the misconception around the margin money concept, because they don't know that we are there to actually support their complete education, including the living expenses. And lastly, the last one, which I told you about the moratorium. Moratorium is not a free period. It's a period where not paying, but interest being charged to your account.
Right.
Mainly these ones, I would say.
Can you tell us more about the AAA model you follow? How does that give you an edge over your competitors?
So we strongly feel that students in their education journey, this is the first loan, right? And I think this is very important milestone for them to enable their future lives, right? So AAA model, what we call, it's an internal term coined by us only. I think it's mainly around, the aspirant, the aspiration and access, So when I say aspirant, I mean student. So we as a company understand students' psyche, its requirement, and our focus on lending is totally on the student's merit, So our main focus of lending is that if the student is bright, even if he's financially very, very weak as a family, we are okay to fund, and we go up to 50 lakhs, 60 lakhs unsecured amount also, because we know the student and we know his merit, and we can imagine how good he'll be if we support the student right now. Second, when I say aspiration, I think he is going to a foreign university, and there's an aspiration attached to the course he is doing, because once he studies there, he passes out, his life scale of life changes. These foreign universities, some of them actually the starting job package maybe $75,000 extra. The scale of life is changing, not for him only, but for the full family. So to assess the aspiration is very important, which means the course he is going for, whether that course will yield him that kind of job, that kind of money. So we actually rate each and every course across the world. We have a rating mechanism, and sometimes we guide the students that, if the course you're going for, the university you're going for is not right, maybe, you need to have a better choice, So that becomes very important. And thirdly, access. As I told you that we are a specialized NBFC. If I'm giving a standardized product and I'm saying I'm offering you maybe, X amount, that may not work for every student in every country, going for every course in every country. New Zealand is known for catering courses. Their requirement of loan is, maybe smaller amounts. The levels of diplomas are different, So for us to understand the finance requirement, how it differentiates between a New Zealand, vocational course to a US STEM, to a management STEM, management US or management Canada or Germany, so this becomes very, very crucial. If we start offering standardized product that, I will give you 30 lakh for your engineering, that may not work. So access, when we define access, we actually try to customize your finance requirement as per your need for the course you're going for, because we understand worldwide courses, worldwide education very well.
Right. Can you tell us what are Auxilo's plan for the future?
So right now, Nandini, we are actually, so our original vision was to be an education ecosystem finance company. We started with 2 segments. One is enabling access in the student loan segment for abroad studies mainly. Second segment, which we also operate right now, is schools, where we try to improve the infrastructure in schools in tier 2, tier 3 cities, because we feel that improving the infrastructure of the schools actually is a showing the way to actually for the future generations to study well. And I'm not talking about a school which we see in metro cities. I'm talking about schools where the monthly fees may be ranging 800 rupees to 1,000 rupees. So those schools we try to fund and improve their infrastructure, which will benefit the students. And then we faced a lot of external environment issues which have happened in the last 2-3 years, including the pandemic,
right,
which we have seen. So now I think when everything looks on a uplift now, I think we're going to enter into more education segments. So whether it be funding for domestic education, whether it be undergraduate or postgraduate, whether it be for funding for upskilling of professionals, whether it be for skill courses which are there, whether it be for digital education being provided by a lot of digital education providers, whether it be for education SMEs. So our vision is that, eventually we should be known for expertise in education, and we should be the first name which comes into anybody's mind when we talk about financing in the education ecosystem. So we're going to enter all these segments gradually, and we'll use a lot of tech here to actually have a good customer experience and better efficiencies. So I think you will keep on seeing us in entering into various segments which I have spoken right about, maybe gradually the next year, over the next year, I would say.
Sure, we will. Mr. Saxena, you very crisply explained how education overseas is looked at by the Indian audience. You really did bust some myths out there related to funding. And I'm sure the viewers have a better understanding of how they must approach finances as students who want to go abroad. Thank you for your valuable insights. It was great conversing with you. That was Mr. Neeraj Saxena, MD and CEO of Auxilo, sharing his expertise on studying abroad. Auxilo is the education loan partner for ET Campus Stars. Have a good day.